Hey, welcome to my LangChain course. So what we have in front of us is the most popular framework for developing auto AI or LLM-based applications out there. You can see it on my screen, on your screen, of course, the main website for LangChain, langchain.com. So you may be wondering, what's up with the funny name? What does LangChain mean? It just looks funny. It looks like it's made up, right? Yeah, well, it is made up if you think about it. I mean, but it has a logic behind it. If you break it down, there's two words in it. One is lang, and the other one is chain. So essentially, what it is saying is it is a framework which can enable us to use large language models and build applications by chaining them, in an order, in some kind of sequence. Well, without further ado, let's look at what they say. They say it's applications that can reason powered by LangChain. Well, that's that's a pretty apt definition if you think about it. In other words, LangChain is a framework that helps us develop robust and scalable applications, and most importantly, production-ready applications, which are powered by large language models. Okay, so basically, what you might be, that sounds like a lot of mumbo jumbo, I know, right? But what do you think is we are accomplishing here? What we are accomplishing here is we are building large language model based applications which are much smarter than your traditional applications where everything is predetermined. The reasoning is done by the developers and the product owners and everybody else who is involved in the application development ahead of time. That's your typical application, but we're coming in this era of artificial intelligence where there's the applications itself are intelligent. Like when they used to call them smart applications, right? Like all applications in the olden days, but well, the real smartness is if the application can make decisions, some decisions on itself, can reason and make decisions on itself, and that's what really smart means. And I guess in that sense, using artificial intelligence, we're truly entering the era of real smart applications. But then, why LangChain, right? That's because the LLM applications themselves have some shortcomings which LangChain helps us overcome. So let's look at a few of those, as we and see why LangChain would be a great tool for that. So now let's look at the first thing, right? Context window. What is context window, right? So humans can only process a certain amount of data at a given time. So does large language models. Large language models, by definition, if you don't know them, they accept text, they output text. So what happens in between is they take your text input, which could be data, it could be a question, and we call them prompts. And they take a prompt and they answer, and they would take over all the data they have within the context memory and give back a response to you based on the knowledge on which this LLM is trained. So this context window is pretty small. So it becomes important that we fill this context window with only the information relevant to the question you're asking. And this is where LangChain helps us, because LangChain has all these cool tools or features. LangChain framework, they're called like things like document loaders, text editors, vector databases, and retrievers, and all these different features help us grab the most relevant information and load it into the context window so that we get the most appropriate response from the large language models. All right, so that's one feature of LangChain which helps overcome shortcoming regarding context windows of LLMs. The next is LLMs are trained up to a certain point of time, so they lack access to real-time data. Okay, so why does real-time data matter? Well, it does matter because we live in real time. We don't live in the past. So LangChain helps us hook up, search engines within your LLM applications. That way, we can supply our LLMs with the most relevant data so that they can make the best decisions when they're reasoning. Next comes the fact that LLMs often lack memory. They have a context window which is loaded with data which is corresponding to the current moment. But what happened in the past is often more relevant, is often more important when answering a question. And this lack of memory is what makes it machine-like more when in comparison with humans. But what if we can actually provide that memory to these LLM machines, to these LLM programs, right? So that's where LangChain comes in again. We have these concepts called memory modules within LangChain we can utilize to provide that historic context. Not just the current context, not just the context of what's happening now, but the historic context to the LLM models, right? So again, so that's another thing which LLM, where LangChain shines and provides, it helps us build effective LLM applications. Next. LLM applications have lots of concepts, lots of things which are just not well segregated. They're just all like a big pile of mud. If you excuse my language, but that's that's a bad software. As any software developer knows, right? So LangChain has different concepts which helps us organize these applications in a more specific way, like concepts such as chains, which we can use for orchestration, agents for automation, and tools and output process, and all these different things which can help us organize our code, like nicely segregate them into different things with different sections, definite goals that LangChain helps us achieve, helps us basically LangChain helps us organize the code in a better way. Next, next we talk about search, right? Like when this LLMs, like I said, this take in text, output text. How do they know what like if we have a bunch of information, we need to search through that information. LLMs don't do that well. They don't have the capability to store all this information because, like I said, the context window is small. And so what if we have this big database, like a couple of gigabytes of database, and we need to search through that? Well, LLMs can't really do that. Like LLMs can't hold all that in their context window, which is really small. So here again, the fact that we have the ability to integrate several software tools out there within using LangChain comes into play. So we have this concept called vector databases, which are these databases which save some really context-aware numbers. They're called vectors inside it. So they take these vector databases, basically store take the textual information, convert them into vectors, and get stored in these vector databases. And you can, so you can load your huge amount of data in these vector databases. And when you want to search for something, right, what you want to do is you search first against these vector databases using LangChain. You perform what's called similarity searches, and when you do search for it, you find all the most relevant vectors. Again, this is not just a simple keyword search. This is information. These vectors are not just a simple match on keywords, but also match on the context of your query. So these then you take these vectors and then you load them into your context window of your LLM, so that the LLM can make the best match, can respond to you using best matched information from your vector databases. So again, LangChain helps with this integration. So that's why. Finally, if you think about the today's scenario where we have several popular LLM engines, like DeepSeek was just out there the other day, but there's other things which are out there, like already established, like OpenAI, which is what most of this course we're going to cover. We're going to do a lot of our things on OpenAI, but there's Llama out there. There's several things out there, right? So what if we want to use multiple of these LLMs in a single application, because one's good at one thing, the other one's good at another thing. So what do you do in such scenario, right? So that's, once again, LangChain comes to your aid. LangChain can help us build multi-LLM applications seamlessly, because pretty much they have LangChain defines common interfaces, which all of these LLMs are all these applications are supposed to implement. So it kind of makes it easier for us to work with these different LLMs in a single application, because they all pretty much implement the same common interface. Now, you may be wondering, right? Like, this all sounds great. Do I need to learn a new language for if you want to use LangChain? Well, depends on where you're coming from. But the most popular language which people use with LangChain is Python, right? That's been the language for machine learning, and that's what people love and use when they're building machine learning and AI applications. So LangChain is available. LangChain has SDK, but don't worry, LangChain, it doesn't mean that you can only use Python with LangChain. You can use many other languages with LangChain, right? So that's been how it is. And so essentially, what I'm trying to say is LangChain has SDKs available for most popular languages out there, like JavaScript and all. But by far, the most popular language, the most natural language for LangChain has been Python. So that's what we're going to be using in this course. So if you don't have Python installed already on your system, this is the right time to do it. I will have instructions on how to get Python installed on your computer when I share the notes for this course, which would be put out on GitHub. I'll be sharing the link in the description of this video, where I will have the link for the LangChain course. And as we progress through these courses, I'll be adding more and more chapters, if we would call, in Python in my GitHub account, in my GitHub repo. And I will be using Jupyter notebooks, which are a really cool way to share code and have notes and markdown at the same place, so that you understand. You don't just look at this big 100 lines of code with no descriptions or no comments. You have markdowns and code. That way you understand little pieces of code and what you're doing in that code right at that place. And as for that, Jupyter notebooks are great. So again, in my instructions, I will have steps on how to install Jupyter notebook along with Python if you're getting started fresh. Thank you for listening so far, and keep listening.